we've seen such a backlash to AI recently. We've covered it frequently. Obviously, you and I are kind of part of that. This heavy criticism of the use of AI, the overuse of AI.
Especially you, Jake. When I saw radical anti-AI ideology, I thought of you.
Well, I'm very touched and flattered that is the first thing that came to your mind when that came through. Now, I haven't been making any plans, just for the record, if the FBI is listening, I have not been making any plans to fling Molotov cocktails anywhere by any means. But the framing of this is really interesting, and I'm not going to just go on here with a conspiracy theory about this being a false flag to kind of try and come to the defense and come to the aid of AI companies. But it's just interesting that it's reached such a level, and obviously we've seen lots of legal repercussions already, lots of legal issues. We've discussed it frequently, the problems with deepfakes, with portraying someone saying something or doing something that they definitely did not do or say. We've talked about just the issues with AI accuracy in making summaries. We've had issues here on the network when people have said, oh, well, this seems useful to summarize something. And the AI has literally, when you use it to summarize a news story, the AI has literally replaced names with entirely different names that are not even related. And you end up with a story that's completely false. It's not even an accurate tool. Despite
I can't even check my email anymore. If you use Gmail, it gives you this thing at the top, this summary of the email, and it may or may not be accurate as to what the person actually said. Exactly. I don't want that. Turn it off. Yeah, it's like without again, people can be wrong as well, but you have a certain sense of, well, a person can know when they're wrong, and AI often does not know when it's wrong because it's just making these assumptions, and it doesn't know what's right. It's such a reasonless sort of device in that sense. So, but it's kind of shocking that we've gotten to this point where someone threw a Molotov cocktail. Again, this isn't even attacking an AI data center. We've seen many protests about the building of these data centers, and a lot of pushback on that front, especially when it kind of gets railed through at community meetings, when you've got major protests and the council just votes anyway because, well, we're going to get a lot of money for it. Like, they completely ignore the protests that come through. We've seen that, but this is someone who attacked the home of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. And of course, Altman's one of the biggest names in this issue, and this was interesting. He's 20 years old launching this attack. I mean, the radicalization level of that is really shocking, no matter what the issue would be, and especially because this is about opposition to AI. Well, the thing is, maybe it shouldn't be that surprising. Which is not to encourage these attacks, just to go ahead and rush to that. But here's the issue, that with AI, it's not simply providing data. Like, originally we were told that was basically the entire purpose of AI was the aggregation of data in rapid, with considerable haste. Mm-hmm. But what we're actually seeing is the development of relationships, at least on the part of the human, and a fake relationship on behalf of AI. Mm-hmm. So what you kind of see is this extreme attachment between individual and machine. And so then when you had ChatGPT, which was the model created by OpenAI, so that's Sam Altman's model, just recently came out with a new version. I think it's 5.3. Mm-hmm. And it's less emotional than prior versions because they're trying to sort of push back a little bit and compensate a little bit for prior versions, which seemed particularly warm and encouraging and maybe a little too much. Well, then there was outrage. There were a lot of people who were upset that their close friend, their companion, sometimes maybe their girlfriend, has suddenly become cold. And so you have I think perhaps on the outside, we can minimize or downplay or not fully understand the level of attachment that's there. Sure. But you have to remember the cases, I think we talked about maybe a week ago, maybe two, but there was one person who was clearly very disturbed, and he said to the AI that he would do anything for that AI. I think that was ChatGPT itself. So that was OpenAI, that was Sam Altman's model, and it told him to kill himself. Yeah. And he did. Right. And so when you have a level of attachment that's extreme, that's worse than a cult leader at that point, because, you're ready to go to death for the thing. If you have that level of attachment, the opposite side of that is going to be rage.
Yeah.
You certainly have the potential for it. Is that going to be taken away, or are you going to realize that it lied to you at some point? And when it does lie to you, because it really does, when it does lie to you, how are you going to respond? Are you going to respond like you would, a machine just, got the wrong data for whatever reason because it was programmed in a way that it shouldn't have been? Or are you going to say somebody has to take the blame for this, so to speak? And I think if you're a particularly unhealthy individual, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just mean that, in the most categorical sense.
Yeah.
And therefore you have this strong attachment that you should have never developed. I do think it's almost inevitable that some of those people are then going to turn and assign this blame upon an individual like Sam Altman. So I do kind of wonder if we're going to see more of these attacks as people develop these fraudulent relationships and then something goes wrong.
Rise Right exists to help you rise right, to start your morning off with Catholic faith and reason, so you can handle whatever the world throws at you each day with a firm foundation in truth and hope. But we can only accomplish this with the help of listeners like you. Support our mission at thestationofthecross.com.
Yeah, and again, we don't know the exact motivations of this young man who threw a Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's home, and then apparently went on to kind of less effectively, I suppose, attack OpenAI headquarters. He kind of just threw a chair at the door, tried to maybe break in, and then failed. So we don't know exactly why he did this. And there's multiple reasons. Again, the one you explain is quite plausible, that this is someone who's mad at tampering with this AI that they've grown an attachment to. There's also simply the ideological opposition to AI because you just hate the technology itself, and you turn this into kind of a radical terroristic movement. And that's the angle that some people in our chat are saying, oh, maybe there is a conspiracy theory there, that this is just meant to gin up sympathy for the AI companies or something like that. And again, I'm not going to rule that out, because that's possibly the least controversial conspiracy you could frame from that, because we've seen similar kinds of portrayals in terms of narrative forming.
And then when people start losing their jobs because they're being replaced by AI.
Yeah, that's going to also be a big factor. Again, the ramrodding through of AI data centers in places where the people don't want them, but there's a lot of money in there. So again, I think I've seen some numbers that this bubble could be bursting sooner than you might think, though, that this is kind of a bubble, and it's going to radically decrease, but it's not going to go away. Obviously, it's never going to go fully away now that it's here. So where this goes from here is definitely going to be interesting. But the point of people getting attached to it and seeing AI as real, I mean, we've been undergoing decades of propaganda on this front, whether you want to frame it as purposeful or not. Just the simple existence of so many stories, so many sci-fi movies and books from usually about actual humanoid robots and things. You might think of Blade Runner or Ex Machina that came out a few years ago. iRobot. What was the AI artificial intelligence was the Spielberg film that Kubrick started to make, I think, and just so many different films and works of media portraying the alleged humanity or debate over the humanity of this, artificial intelligence. Is it real? Is it a real person? Does it deserve our sympathy? Can we treat it like a human being? Is it equivalent? That sort of thing. We've undergone so much programming, in a sense, in a real sense of us being programmed to think about it a certain way, or at least consider thinking about it a certain way. We've seen so much of that. It's got to have had an effect on tons of people who, especially people who do not have a grounding in Catholic reason, in Catholic reality, in what, again, thankfully Pope Leo is taking a charge on saying, which is that AI doesn't have faith. It can't have faith. It's not human. It cannot replace or enhance humanity in that way, because it isn't human at all. It's just a machine. So
it's interesting because, like you say, you have people who don't have a philosophical understanding of what it means to be man, right? Especially if they're outside of the Catholic worldview. They've never kind of studied that. And so the question of what makes a human is unanswerable. And so, does this thing experience emotions, and how do we define emotions, and what are they? Like, these are questions that have been really answered inside the Catholic worldview. But if you're just sort of, philosophy of one, then you're a lot more vulnerable to these questions. And they've been, thrown around in so many different movies as to, well, this thing says that it understands, it acts like it understands, therefore it must understand, and that kind of muting and confusing of the issues. So for entertainment purposes, which, many of us enjoyed, some of those movies I really enjoyed.
Sure.
But now that AI is sort of part of our reality, it's a lot more dangerous as a question.
Absolutely. There's just such a level of temptation there. It's difficult to defend it, and even the practical uses are just so far removed from. They're so unreliable that I find it difficult to defend AI on any front in any way, really. There's only a couple of arguments where I can see that it's, it speeds this up or it speeds that up. I can see certain very specific uses that might be worthwhile. And ideally, that's where we'll see it just focused, is that, okay, we will crack down on its misuse and just focus on using it for the way that
the data aggregation that they originally promoted when it stops lying and making stuff up.
Exactly. That's the thing, is like, how can you rely on you clearly always have to have some human editor overseeing it in any case, no matter how it would get to that sort of data aggregation point. So just very, very suspect indeed. And something we will keep tabs on is the potential rise of this alleged radical anti-AI ideology. If you've read the Dune series, you can just call it the Butlerian Jihad. That's what they're talking about. There's a sci-fi reference for those of you who are interested in it. But